Chapter 89, Central part of the Cold Winter Forest, Baipo Lake. With the support of emerald-colored shadow powers, Li Yu, holding Little White Wolf, descended from the sky to the lakeside. Feeling the terrifying fluctuations of the shadow powers, the gathered magical beasts and some deep demons scattered all at once. In an instant, the surroundings of Baipo Lake entered a mysterious state of tranquility. Without a doubt, this gray-haired little girl is our beloved Li Yu. Under normal circumstances, except for occasionally flying around in the western border to put on a show, most of the time, Li Yu stayed in the eastern part, accompanying Yu Mo by her side. Li Yu rarely visited the central lake district. The reason for coming today was because of her foolish elder sister, the Bai Yanluo, and more importantly, the issue of the heroine. That dangerous woman sticking so closely to her mother made Li Yu very uneasy, and she had to find someone to discuss countermeasures. At present, in the cold winter forest, the only person who could help her and quickly heal her foolish elder sister was the one who spent all day sleeping in Baipo Lake. Sigh. It seems that he hasn't woken up yet. Looking at the ever-calm, ripple-less blue lake surface, Li Yu couldn't help but frown. She had come here so conspicuously, and this woman still hadn't woken up. If one day people from the Asumo's church get their way into the forest, she doubted this sister would have any reaction. Really? So many things have happened outside. The backyard is on fire, but she's still sleeping. Li Yu couldn't help rolling her eyes. Following that, her emerald eyes suddenly narrowed, and she stared solemnly at the quiet lake surface. A violent whirlwind of wind-attributed silent shadow power began to surge around the gray-haired little girl, and an emerald light slowly blossomed in Li Yu's eyes. Sorry, since you haven't woken up yet, I'll have to give you an extra-large alarm clock tilde. After revealing a kind smile, Li Yu's wings suddenly spread. Shua. Countless emerald wind blades, carrying a world-shaking momentum, roared toward the center of the lake. Boom tilde tilde. Accompanied by a thunderous explosion. Suddenly, a fierce explosion erupted in the center of the lake. Water splashed everywhere, and countless aquatic magical beasts and unfortunate deep demons were sent flying into the sky. A storm-like torrent rapidly spread in all directions. As for Li Yu, she casually wrapped her petite body and the little white wolf in her wings. She didn't want her new clothes, chosen by her mother, to be stained with water tilde. A moment later, with the rain subsiding and the sky clearing, Li Yu slowly opened her wings, and the dense shadow power that surrounded her gradually flowed back into the little girl's body. Then, Li Yu quietly stared at the surging lake center. I don't believe it. Even with this, you still won't wake up. And then, Li Yu silently watched for several minutes, until there were no more ripples on lake and everything returned to tranquility. The person Li Yu expected to see didn't show up. Li Yu. Unbelievable, how can she still be asleep? After yelling in frustration, Li Yu unleashed another barrage toward the lake, her aura of shadow power spreading wildly. This caused the demons within a 100-mile radius to tremble and cower. Finally, after this outburst, a soft and slightly weary girl's voice responded to Li Yu, echoing in her ears. Ah, yawn tilde, Li Yu, what's wrong? You seem so anxious. As the yawn reached Li Yu's ears, ripples of gentle blue-gold light began to shimmer in the center of the Baipo Lake. Accompanied by the churning waters and the dispersal of the silent shadow power, a blue silhouette slowly emerged from the lake and floated in midair. She was a tall, slender girl with long, flowing blue-gold hair. Her left eye was a beautiful golden rose, while her right eye was a captivating light gold. Her eyes were like clear water, filled with icy coldness as if she could see through everything. Her fingers were delicate, her skin like creamy jade, and her rosy white complexion seemed as if it could be twisted out of water. A pair of crimson lips, a gentle smile, every move she made seemed like a dance. Her blue-gold hair reached her ankles. Although she had just emerged from the water, her hair still danced with the wind, releasing a pleasant fragrance. The blue-haired girl was not only beautiful but also had a perfect body. Her ample breasts, unbelievably slender waist, round hips, and long legs would be considered extraordinary by most humanoid standards. Surrounded by swirling droplets and the shimmering blue-gold light, she looked like a flawless painting. Moreover, the girl who emerged from the lake was completely naked. However, the crucial parts of her chest and the secret area were shrouded by a mist of blue-gold energy, leaving nothing to see. Sometimes the unseen can be more enticing. If some less restrained individuals were to see this scene, they might have nosebleeds and faint on the spot. However, Li Yu, who often dealt with this woman, had no reaction to the sight. In fact, she felt slightly speechless at the sight of the fog covering her chest and hips. "You finally decided to wake up, Sister Xiu Yue." Li Yu put her hands on her hips, pouted, and said unhappily. The blue-haired girl's real name was Feng Hua, Xiu Yue. Li Yu usually called her Xiu Yue. Xiu Yue was the youngest of the Demon King rank, known as the Nightmare. Although Xiu Yue was a terrifying Demon King, causing fear in the hearts of many forces on the Ansita continent. In Li Yu's eyes, she was a troublesome little sister. A sleepyhead who knew nothing but lazing around all day. Hasn't she been sleeping for 7 years straight already? Have you slept enough, Sister Xiu Yue? Asserting her authority as the older sister, Li Yu spoke confidently. However, faced with her sister's threat, Xiu Yue nonchalantly stretched lazily. As Li Yu watched speechlessly, Xiu Yue rubbed her sleepy eyes. "Nope, Tilda, I originally planned to sleep for another 10 years, Tilda. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Be careful not to sleep yourself into a pig." "No." Shaking her head, Xiu Yue slowly descended from midair under the escort of the blue-gold silent shadow power, standing in front of Li Yu. "Sister Li Yu, you know it's not just simple sleep for me, Tilda. My consciousness has been constantly working on important matters throughout the continent, Tilda. Sigh whatever, but you've really been sleeping for too long this time." Not that long, right?" Xiu Yue slowly raised her hand and wound her beautiful blue-gold gradient hair around her finger. Then Xiu Yue's half-closed eyes locked onto the little white wolf in Li Yu's arms. Sister Li Mo, why is she in silly mode again? Did something happen?" Feeling something was off, Xiu Yue couldn't help but ask. At this, Li Yu sighed helplessly. "Yes, something happened, and it's a long story." What exactly happened?" "I'll talk about my issue later. Let me tell you something first." "What?" "Mother has taken a human form." "Oh, when did this happen?" It's been a while." In an instant, Xiu Yue's expression changed dramatically. Her sleepy demeanor vanished, and she suddenly became alert. Transforming into a blue-gold flash of light, she dashed to Li Yu, grabbing the gray-haired girl's shoulders. Excited, yet somewhat reproachful, she said, This, such important news. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Don't tell me you and Mom were having a secret bonding session, so you intentionally didn't inform me." "No." Li Yu unceremoniously gave Xiu Yue a resounding knock on the head. "Calm down. I wanted to tell you earlier, but you were asleep and couldn't hear me." "How could you be like this, Tilda?" Xiu Yue lowered her head in disappointment. However, moments later, as if suddenly recalling something, Xiu Yue raised her eyebrows and looked at Li Yu strangely. "Then, why didn't Mom wake me up before? And why did you suddenly make such a fuss this time? Is there some more serious matter?" "Yes." Li Yu slightly nodded, neither confirming nor denying. Then what's the matter? Mother brought back a girl from the outside. A girl? Is it really necessary to make such a fuss over a girl? Not just any girl, she's the female protagonist. They. Upon hearing this, Xiu Yue's light gold eyes narrowed, and her pretty face was shrouded in solemnity. It seems like a genuinely serious matter. In the eastern part of the great winter forest, where Yumo's little house was located. As the winter sun shone through the window, the darkness inside the house was driven away, welcoming the radiant glow of dawn. At this moment inside the house, the adorable Minxie was affectionately embracing a large bear plushie specially made by Yumo, lying obediently in bed. Judging from her constantly upward curving lips, the little cutie was enjoying a delightful dream. Across from the small bed, a beautiful black-haired girl was sitting quietly on a wooden chair, her hands resting on her knees, her eyes closed. As the sunlight fell on her exquisite face, the black-haired girl showed no reaction. She remained seated, motionless like a statue. This beautiful black-haired girl was, of course, our Yumo. Though she had successfully transformed into a human through the secrets of the elf race, Yumo still retained many habits from her time as a building. One of the most ingrained was to sit motionless, like a wooden figure, silently contemplating life. Of course, sometimes she was just daydreaming. Wasting time. Obviously, Yumo was once again in building mode. Initially, Minxie had relentlessly insisted that Yumo accompany her to sleep. Yumo had thought they'd just sleep, but the childlike Minxie unexpectedly wrapped her arms around Yumo like an octopus, seemingly trying to maximize body contact. The breathtaking sleeping beauty so close, the faint scent of jasmine, and the soft sensation from her arm all made Yumo lose control, unable to calm her mind. An ordinary person, when embraced so intimately by such a beautiful being, would probably want to seize the moment, right? As a result, to avoid any accidents, after closing her eyes and meditating for a while, making sure Minxie was sound asleep, Yumo replaced herself with the big bear plushie, letting Minxie's slender arms and round, white thighs encircle it. Yumo herself sat in a chair, quietly guarding the sleeping girl. While guarding, Yumo's thoughts entered the consciousness space she constructed within her mind, beginning a contemplation just like she did in the past. The subject of contemplation mainly had to do with the recent Galrose Fortress battle. Tilda. After carefully recalling the details of the battle at Galrose Fortress, Yumo in the consciousness space couldn't help but let out a long sigh. In this battle, more than 2,000 abyssal demons died due to the counterattacks of the Galrose Fortress defenders. More than half of them died from the magic bomb and the subsequent city barrier. When the abyssal demons entered the city and engaged the soldiers in close combat, the battle was completely one-sided. Although the abyssal demons indeed had a numerical advantage, the combat strength of the defending soldiers was truly unsatisfactory to Yumo. Excluding those directly killed by Li Mo, these human defenders had to pay a price of about 20 people to eliminate a single abyssal demon. It seemed like they were quite weak. Additionally, the soldiers' combat experience and understanding of the abyssal demons were so poor it was infuriating. For instance, when encountering a highly poisonous abyssal demon, many soldiers would foolishly charge into the range of its poisonous mist. When facing water attribute demons, they actually used fire attribute magic to attack. Some demons had their weak point on their back, but the soldiers focused their attacks on the chest armor. Unbelievable. These basic facts about the abyssal demons should be well known by the soldiers, right? Sigh. Were they really too comfortable for too long? Or maybe their intelligence was wrong. However, that seemed unlikely. After all, they had been confronting the abyssal demons for so long. Although the soldier's performance was disappointing, Yumo still found some things to be happy about. For example, the so-called missile-like purple device created by the Crown Prince of the Snow Knight Empire. Truly worthy of being the protagonist, he could actually create such a device, quite impressive tilde. This iron lump could kill tens of thousands of abyssal demons in one strike. To put it into perspective, Yumo hadn't lost so many demons in all of their previous clashes combined. Although this weapon wasn't without flaws, once the demons knew its characteristics, they could concentrate fire and shoot it down before it reached their ranks. But this flaw wasn't a significant problem. Anyway, as long as Yumo did her best to let the demons not destroy the missile directly, it would surely cause considerable harm to the abyssal demons. If it could injure Li Mo, even an unprepared Li Mo, its power was undoubtedly beyond what ordinary abyssal demons could withstand. However, Yumo didn't know if such an incredible device could be mass-produced. Even if it couldn't be mass-produced, being able to occasionally launch, it would ensure the gap between humans and abyssal demons wouldn't be so vast. Apart from the missile, Yumo was pleasantly surprised and satisfied with Bai Yanluo and the Mengxi strength. The Apostle of Heaven's power was evident as they were able to fight against a liberated Li Mo for so long. The top human experts are still reliable tilde. Of course, what excited Yumo the most was the heroine's strength. Battling two rank 6 experts at once and almost defeating them. There was no doubt that Mengxi had a promising future. As for why Mengxi could control the power of the shadows, Yumo still couldn't figure it out after studying her body. Her body seemed just like an ordinary person. Perhaps the reason lay in her soul. Yumo pondered. But considering Mengxi's soul was now so weak, Yumo didn't dare risk examining it. She was afraid that the powerful shadow's energy might accidentally cause irreversible damage to her soul. For now, they would continue with the original training plan. Yumo would give Mengxi the Amos pills to accelerate her cultivation tonight, and tomorrow they would immerse her in the soul-rejuvenating liquid. By then, the childlike symptoms should also subside as her soul power recovers. Oh, right besides Mengxi's situation. The little girl they had saved earlier, and the divine punishment sect pills. While Yumo was deep in thought and making plans in her consciousness, the adorable silver-haired girl on the bed furrowed her brow slightly before opening her hazy, light purple eyes. Sister Yumo. After letting out a cute, soft call, Mengxi rubbed her eyes and curiously looked at the big bear plush doll in her arms. When she realized that the being she was holding wasn't Yumo, the girl couldn't help but pout. Without another word, she released the plush doll and looked towards the black-haired girl sitting in a chair, unmoving like a statue in the room. At this moment, a subtle, strange expression emerged in Mengxi's eyes. However, it quickly vanished, hidden behind her innocent and lovely face. In the next moment, the girl, wearing a white lace-strap dress, slowly crawled out of the bed, tiptoeing barefoot to Yumo's side. Yumo didn't react at all. After all, Mengxi didn't have any fluctuations of divine power or holy energy at the moment. Apart from her physical constitution, she was almost indistinguishable from an ordinary person. Yumo, who was absorbed in thought in her consciousness, seemingly wouldn't sense any non-threatening actions. This scene, Mengxi took note of it. Seeing that Yumo didn't react, Mengxi, who was quietly standing next to her, couldn't help but grow bolder. She slowly walked behind Yumo. After sniffing near Yumo's ear, Mengxi raised her delicate arm and without any hesitation, embraced Yumo's neck from behind, rubbing her face affectionately against Yumo's soft, fair cheek. Due to the rubbing, Yumo emerged from her consciousness and opened her dazzling, ruby-red eyes. She then looked helplessly at the silver-haired girl with a pure smile beside her and reached out to pat her slightly messy head. "Awake are you?" "MMHM." Mengsi nodded repeatedly, smiling, and closed her eyes to enjoy Yumo's touch. The two girls quietly interacted for a while, until Mengsi opened her eyes again. Sister Yumo Tilda, in the eastern part of the cold winter forest. A girl with stunning pink hair and a cute youthful face is holding a black magic lamp, speeding through the cold winter forest, heading towards the eastern inland. For most people on the Anceta continent, coming to the cold winter forest at night would undoubtedly be a suicidal move. Though even coming during the daytime wouldn't be much better. Humans lack strong night vision. However, the night is the natural hunting ground for abyssal demons. If encountering an abyssal demon during the day means 9 deaths out of 10, then meeting one at night would mean certain death. But at this moment, the girl who had entered the forest showed no fear. Not long after entering the forest, she began to run wildly. Naturally, the abyssal demons noticed the girl with a powerful fighting spirit. However, unexpectedly, the abyssal demons did not launch a hysterical, terrifying attack on her as they usually would. Instead, after taking a quick glance at the pink-haired girl, they chose to ignore her and return to their daily routines. Some abyssal demons even kindly helped to drive away any monsters that stood in the girl's path. The dense fog in the cold winter forest also did not affect the girl's speed in the slightest. Clearly, this was not the first time the pink-haired girl had come to the cold winter forest. She was quite familiar with the place. The girl was Qiu Mingtang, the commander of the Autumn Corps from the Black Rose family. Like Sebastian, she was an orphan of the human race who had grown up in the cold winter forest. She was naturally very familiar with the forest, and returning to the cold winter forest was no different from going home. After receiving instructions from Yumo, Qiu Mingtang took advantage of the moonlight and sneaked into the depths of the cold winter forest. The reason for doing this at night was to avoid being seen by others, as there were still quite a few people from the Marquis soldier near the fortress, and her position as a commander didn't suit her to disappear in broad daylight. "I have to hurry. Lady Yumo has been waiting for a long time." To make Lady Yumo wait any longer would be very impolite. After mumbling a few words of urgency, Qiu Mingtang completely released the bindings of her fighting spirit and dashed toward the interior of the forest. After a long sprint, Qiu Mingtang finally arrived at her destination, which was where the former Hall of 10,000 Demon Temple had been located. Well, the ancient palace had now vanished without a trace, replaced by a simple yet exquisite wooden house. Although she knew that Yumo had successfully transformed, not being able to see the familiar, spectacular sight still made Qiu Mingtang feel a hint of sadness. However, soon Qiu Mingtang brushed away the sadness in her eyes, straightened her clothes, and approached the beautiful black-haired woman in front of the house. The black-haired woman was beautiful yet unfamiliar. However, upon sensing the familiar crimson shadow power emanating from the woman, and seeing the dancing bloody red butterfly on her shoulder, Qiu Mingtang instantly realized the woman's identity. As such, the pink-haired girl's face became extremely serious. She respectfully approached the black-haired girl, lowered her head and spoke apologetically. "I'm sorry, Lady Yumo, I'm late." But Yumo didn't really mind that Qiu Mingtang was late. After all, she understood the difficulties Qiu Mingtang faced. Instead, when she saw the usually emotionless girl showing a guilty expression, Yumo couldn't help but give a wry smile. "It's all right, little Tong. I'm not blaming you. There's no need for this. By the way, it's been a while. How have things been with you at Duke's place?" "Very good. The Duke treats me very well." "That's good to hear." Yumo nodded slightly. At that time, Entrusting the orphans they had rescued from the cold winter forest to them seemed to be a good decision. As Yumo sensed the powerful seventh-tier fighting energy within Qiu Mingtong's body, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle like a mother. Just think about it. Little Tong is so young, and she had already reached the seventh tier. How could those fortress guys be so weak? Oh, speaking of which, did you bring that thing? Yes, I brought everything, Lady Yumo. With that, Qiu Mingtong unloaded the heavy warhammer from her back, as well as a huge black package, and handed the package to Yumo. Compared to the package, Qiu Mingtong looked quite petite, but carrying it seemed effortless for her. Her small frame was filled with strength. Lady Yumo, everything you need is inside. Oh, well done, little Tong, you're amazing. After taking a look at the contents of the package, Yumo couldn't help but praise her. Upon hearing Yumo's compliment, Qiu Mingtong couldn't help but show a cute smile. Thank you for your praise, Lady Yumo. After saying that, Qiu Mingtong seemed to remember something and couldn't help but ask, So, Lady Yumo, you mentioned earlier that you needed my help with something. What is it? Hearing this, Yumo slowly raised her hand to her chin. Well, it's actually not a big deal. When you go back and see that old man, Sebastian, just give him a good whack on the behind for me. Huh, did Lord Sebastian do something wrong? He said a lot of lies. I see. Then, Lady Yumo, why didn't you take action yourself when Lord Sebastian was here? Well, I guess he won't dare to come over for some time, Yumo said coldly. All right, I understand, Lady Yumo, Qiu Mingtong said confidently, and immediately she seemed to demonstrate her strength by vigorously swinging the heavy hammer beside her. Don't worry, Lady Yumo. I guarantee that Lord Sebastian's behind will blossom. Although she didn't know exactly what Lord Sebastian did wrong, as long as it was Yumo's command, she would carry it out. After all, following Yumo's orders was the very purpose of the Black Rose family's existence. Well, it's true that the Duke sometimes secretly disobeyed and did some bad things tilde. Tilde. Seeing Qiu Mingtong being so cooperative, a certain vengeful girl nodded her head in satisfaction. Just then, a certain old butler far away suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. After chatting for a bit, Yumo watched Qiu Mingtong leave the barrier. She had initially wanted to have Qiu Mingtong stay the night, but considering that she had to go back and manage the tens of thousands-strong Autumn-Fall Legion, Yumo abandoned her original plan. At most, she padded a seventh-order abyssal demon to carry Qiu Mingtong back, preventing the child from being overly exhausted. Afterward, Yumo returned to the cabin and brought the large bag of supplies into the kitchen. In the next moment, countless blood-red butterflies fluttered behind Yumo, helping her tie up her scattered black hair into a ponytail and presenting her with a white apron. Donning the apron, Yumo transformed into a charming and beautiful chef. A surge of scarlet shadow power gathered in her right hand, gradually forming a bright red, sharp kitchen knife. At the same time, countless kitchen utensils from unknown sources were continuously transported into the kitchen by the blood-red butterflies through the window. Let's get to work. With a light laugh, Yumo suddenly waved her hand and the black package burst open. Various packaged ingredients and an array of seasonings tumbled out from the opening, and a fresh aroma filled Yumo's nostrils. The moment she smelled it, Yumo revealed a satisfied smile. With this, she should be able to prepare a nice meal for the girl, right? Previously, Menxi had continuously held Yumo's hand and pleaded, wanting to eat a meal made by her. Unable to resist the girl's charm, Yumo agreed. After all, indulging a child occasionally wasn't a big deal. Of course, on the other hand, Yumo felt that she couldn't keep having the protagonist eat fruit to recover. Although the winter forest had meat, it was all from magical beasts. The meat of magical beasts contained energy of a certain intensity, and Mengsi, with her current weak body, couldn't consume this kind of food. Besides magical beast meat and fruits, Yumo's cabin had no other ingredients. So, out of necessity, Yumo asked Qiu Mingtong to bring some suitable ingredients for recuperating patients. Fortunately, Qiu Mingtong was very reliable. The timing of the delivery was just right to make dinner. With this thought, Yumo smiled. Surrounded by blood-red butterflies, she began preparing the ingredients. Although she wasn't a master chef, Yumo was capable of cooking simple dishes, at least better than Liu, whose cooking was dangerous. In any case, I hope the heroine will like it, Yumo thought inwardly. As Yumo enthusiastically started cooking, Mengsi, who had changed into a cute pink rabbit pajama upstairs, tiptoed down the stairs, watching Yumo busily working in the kitchen, exuding wife-like charm. At this moment, Mengsi didn't rush over to act spoiled as before, but instead quietly stood at the stairway entrance. Watching the black-haired girl efficiently cook, Mengsi squinted her eyes slightly, and a trace of doubt emerged in the young girl's eyes. Is she really an abyssal demon? After Yumo worked diligently for a while, a table full of delicious dishes were presented on the dining table. Yumo hadn't originally intended to cook so many dishes, but considering that Qiu Mingtong had brought so many ingredients, it would be a waste not to use them. Adhering to the glorious tradition of conserving food, Yumo used all of these ingredients. After all, apart from Mengsi needing to eat, Liu and Limu, the two little girls, also needed to eat, although it was unclear where those two had run off to. Nevertheless, preparing dinner in advance and waiting for their return was no problem. Children, tired from playing, would undoubtedly be happy to eat a warm meal upon returning home. Moreover, having not entered the kitchen as a human for a long time, Yumo couldn't help but show off her skills a bit. For some reason, she wanted to demonstrate her abilities in front of her little girls. Looking at the delicious dishes on the table, Yumo placed her hands on her hips and revealed a beautiful smile full of accomplishment. Then, Yumo glanced at the silver-haired girl hiding at the top of the stairs, peeping at her, and waved her hand somewhat helplessly. "Little Mengsi, stop hiding, come over here, I saw you a while." Wu Tilda. Upon hearing Yumo's call, Mengsi let out a cute whimper, then trotted into the dining room. "Sister Yumo Tilda, can we start eating?" Mengsi asked with a sweet smile, full of curiosity. The silver-haired girl seemed eager to try the various dishes on the table, her voice full of anticipation. Her pale purple eyes sparkled like dazzling stars as she gazed at Yumo, blinking. Seeing the girl's adorable expression, Yumo smiled and nodded slightly. Although Yumo initially planned to wait for Liu and Limu to return before eating together, considering the strange look Liu gave Mengsi recently, and not knowing when the children would return, Yumo decided to abandon the plan. Seeing the infantilized protagonist bouncing over to her, Yumo couldn't help but feel a bit helpless. Fortunately, this situation shouldn't last too long. Otherwise, how could this heroine defeat her in the future? Was she supposed to defeat her with cuteness? Well, it didn't seem entirely impossible, Yumo muttered in her heart. While at the same time, Yumo's crimson eyes narrowed slightly, locking onto Mengsi's bare little feet. A hint of anger surfaced in Yumo's eyes. "Young lady, didn't I tell you not to run around barefoot on the floor? Although the room is heated, the floor is still cold. What if you catch a cold?" As she spoke, Yumo instantly appeared next to Mengsi. Under Mengsi's slightly surprised gaze, Yumo lifted the disobedient child onto a chair and gently rubbed the girl's cute little feet. As expected, they were cold. The black-haired girl frowned. "You child, why don't you listen?" Yumo's tone couldn't help but carry a hint of reproach, causing Mengxi's pale purple eyes to redden slightly. Pouting her lips with a wronged look on her face, she said innocently, But sister, don't you do the same." Mengxi pointed at Yumo's similarly bare, beautiful feet and spoke unwillingly. "Ah, it's not the same for you and me." Yumo couldn't help but facepalm. Sigh. Her not wearing shoes was mainly due to habit. For more than 500 years, as the ruler of the demon temple, she had been intimately connected with the earth. Even after transforming into human form, she chose to maintain this habit. Moreover, those fancy shoes with heels provided by Sebastian, Yumo genuinely didn't like. More importantly, she wasn't afraid of the cold. Not just the cold, but other damage didn't matter either. With her physical constitution, even if she stepped on a blade, she'd be unharmed. However, Mengxi didn't understand all this and pitifully whispered her grievance, looking as wronged as can be. "Woo-woo, what's the difference anyway?" Sigh. Yumo couldn't help but sigh. "Fine, fine, I'll wear shoes properly from now on. Will you also wear shoes properly?" Let's forget about the ones Sebastian sent. Speaking of which, there were quite a few white bandages in the warehouse. She could use the bandages to wrap her feet. Yumo thought to herself. As she pondered, she continued to rub Mengxi's little feet, helping dispel the chill. Moments later, under the escort of several blood butterflies, a pair of adorable fluffy shoes floated gently down from upstairs. Then, Yumo sighed and helped Mengxi put on the shoes. "Let's call it even this time, but be more careful in the future, okay?" Tilde. Mengxi obediently nodded slightly, cooperating as she put on the fluffy shoes. Once the shoes were on, Yumo stood up slightly. All right, you want to eat the meal your sister made, right? Well, here it is, Tilde." Saying this, Yumo proudly pointed at the dishes on the table. At the same time, a bowl of fragrant sweet porridge was brought out from the kitchen by a few blood butterflies and placed in front of Mengxi. "Here, this is specially prepared for." Yumo smiled gently. This wasn't ordinary porridge, but a delicacy infused with a rare constitution potion. Given the heroine's current childish nature, afraid that Mengxi would refuse to take the bitter medicine, Yumo racked her brains to blend it into the sweet porridge without compromising its efficacy. In this way, Mengxi wouldn't reject it, right? "Hurry up and drink it to strengthen the body, Tilde." However, the next moment, Yumo couldn't help but reveal a puzzled expression. Because Mengxi didn't excitedly drink the sweet porridge as Yumo anticipated, nor did she touch any dish on the table. She simply propped her hands on her legs, staring with her beautiful pale purple eyes, silently gazing at Yumo. What's wrong? Is it not to your taste?" "It's not that." Mengxi decisively shook her head. Seeing this, Yumo's eyebrows furrowed slightly. "Then what's the matter?" "Sister, feed me Tilde," Mengxi said with a coquettish tone. What?" "Woo-woo, you promised me this morning." Mengxi pouted her lips, looking at Yumo with a face full of anger, as if the silver-haired girl would throw a fit if Yumo dared to say no. Seeing Mengxi's appearance, Yumo fell silent for a short time. Did she promise? Thinking about it, she seemed to have. Recalling the morning, in order to coax Mengxi into waiting until dinner for her cooking, she did promise. In that case, all right. After all, Li Mo and Li Yu weren't around now. Otherwise, if they saw this, they'd undoubtedly demand to be fed every meal in the future. Thinking of this, Yumo resignedly nodded. "Fine. Yay." Seeing Yumo nod in agreement, Mengxi let out a joyous and contented laugh. At this, Yumo helplessly patted the other's little head. Then, Yumo took the bowl of porridge, scooped up a spoonful and held it near her soft, full lips. She gently blew on it to prevent the hot porridge from scalding Menxi. When the temperature felt just right, Yumo brought the spoon to Menxi's face. "Here, Atilda." Seeing this, Menxi cooperatively stretched out her little head, her cherry lips slightly open as she nibbled the spoon. As the sweet porridge entered her mouth, the sweetness stimulating her taste buds, Menxi's beautiful face couldn't help but beam with happiness. Seeing this sweet smile, a warm feeling unknowingly filled Yumo's heart. It seemed making sweet porridge was the right choice, Tilda. Children do prefer sweets, Tilda. Besides, the feeling of feeding her isn't bad. What? Just like that, the slightly heartwarming moments passed by, second by second, as various foods and sweet porridge were consumed, and as the effects of the medicine gradually kicked in, an irresistible drowsiness slowly engulfed Menxi's little head. In the end, unable to resist sleep, the silver-haired girl leaned on Yumo's lap and fell into a deep slumber after a brief struggle. Seeing this, Yumo smiled slightly, putting down the small bowl in her hand. After using a damp cloth to wipe away the oil stains around Menxi's mouth, Yumo carefully picked her up. Surrounded by a group of blood butterflies, she headed towards the bedroom. Undress. Change into pajamas. Put to bed. Cover with blanket. Miss Yumo's actions were all smooth and practiced. After settling Menxi in, Yumo closed the bedroom door and cast a protective and soundproofing magic barrier outside the room. After everything was taken care of, Yumo returned to the dining room to deal with the delicious feast spread out on the table. Menxi hadn't eaten much, so the food on the table was almost untouched after she finished. But Yumo wasn't worried about wasting it. After all, Li Mo and Li Yu hadn't eaten yet, and it wouldn't be a problem for them to finish the food once they returned. Despite the sisters' small stature, their true forms were both powerful demon king-tier abyssal demons. Strictly speaking, this amount of food was not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. However, looking at the delicious food on the table and glancing at the international magazines that Sebastian had sent earlier, Yumo couldn't help but recall her life as a student. Back then, when she was alone at home, she would often cook some dishes or order takeout, then leisurely eat while watching her computer or reading novels. Why not relive those days for a change? Menxi was asleep. It was an opportunity to enjoy some peaceful personal time. With this thought, Yumo smiled slightly, picked up an interesting sports magazine, and walked leisurely to the dining table. At that moment, Yumo's eyebrows raised slightly as a certain red energy body suddenly entered her sensory range and rapidly charged toward the cabin. This aura, they're back. It seems we can still eat together. Yumo felt good and smiled faintly. However, the next moment, Yumo's smile gradually stiffened. Wait, hold on. This direction. Looking at the window opposite the dining table and the rapidly approaching red meteor in the distance, Yumo's expression changed dramatically. Hey, you brat, stop. Unfortunately, Yumo's warning was a bit too late. The next moment, boom! Accompanied by an explosion of red shadow power, the exquisite window shattered, and the wooden wall was suddenly turned to ashes by the high temperature. Surrounded by flames and black ashes, a beautiful and adorable wolf girl excitedly raised her hands, leaped into the room after letting out an excited "Ahya" shout. Then, the wolf girl excitedly waved her hand towards the back. Yay, I'm the first, Li Yu, you lost. Without a doubt, this white-haired girl was none other than Li Mo at this moment. She had finally successfully broken free from her silly husky mode and returned to her former state. Just as she had regained her normal state, Li Mo was clearly a bit overly excited and started playing a racing game with Li Yu. Of course, it was one-sided. Li Yu wanted to stop her, but it was too late, in the end. On the other side, moments later, under the embrace of emerald shadow power, Li Yu descended from the sky, fluttering her wings. "Sister, how could you be so reckless?" Li Yu couldn't help but complain. Seeing the mess outside the cabin, Li Yu couldn't help but hold her forehead. If she had known, she wouldn't have let Shoyu heal her silly sister so quickly. Or rather, she should have taken precautions first. What a miscalculation. "Sister, you really are, huh? Huh? What the?" In an instant, the newly landed Li Yu held her breath, looking at Li Mo's back with a bewildered expression. Her face suddenly turned pale, and the words she wanted to say were swallowed back down. "Huh, what's wrong, Li Yu?" Seeing her sister's words come to an abrupt halt, Li Mo unconsciously had numerous question marks floating above her head, curiously looking at her own sister. However, in response to Li Mo's question, Li Yu fell into a strange silence, giving her silly sister a good luck to you look. Of course, the rather simple-minded Li Mo naturally couldn't understand the meaning behind Li Yu's expression, and instead tilted her head in confusion. What's going on? This sudden expression. Could it be that you want to go back on your word after losing? To this, Li Yu remained silent. Instead, under Li Mo's puzzled gaze, the wings that should have been retracted into her body spread open again, and Li Yu silently flew away. Meow. What's going on? This left Li Mo confused. However, she couldn't be bothered to think about it right now. Her mind was filled with only one thought, to quickly find her mother and tell her about her return to normal. Then, receive her mother's loving caress. Tilda. Imagining the scene of her mother stroking her head, Li Mo couldn't help but grin. Then the wolf girl turned around excitedly and ran into the house. As soon as she turned her head, Li Mo was surprised to find a beautiful black-haired girl standing there with her arms folded, tilting her head and silently staring at her. Mother. Upon seeing Yu Mo, the wolf cub couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression, her red eyes blinking. What the? Mother was already in the living room, and she hadn't sensed her presence at all. Could it be that her mother had concealed her shadow power? But why would she do that? Several questions emerged in Li Mo's mind again. However, Li Mo quickly chose to ignore them once more, because, instead of pondering these questions, she wanted to quickly run into her mother's arms and act cute. She wanted to snuggle. And so, Li Mo excitedly ran forward. However, just as she leaped out, Li Mo's brows furrowed deeply. Though the wolf cub was a bit simple, her instincts as a beast were still quite strong. After approaching Yu Mo, a strange chill suddenly entered Li Mo's little head, causing her to instinctively feel a shiver down her spine. It was then that the belatedly perceptive Li Mo noticed the details of her surroundings. Not to mention the mess inside the house. There was food scattered all over the floor, which looked very delicious. Come to think of it, Li Yu seemed to have mentioned that their mother would cook dinner tonight. And then she seemed to have. More importantly, looking at Yu Mo's now darkened face, complete with a friendly smile, Li Mo immediately took a deep breath, holding her breath, and her ears and tail stood on end. I just remembered I have to guard the border. I'll be going first. Without further ado, Li Mo immediately turned around and ran off. Unfortunately, by the time she noticed Yu Mo's expression, the wolf cub had already walked into the lion's den. The next moment, just as Li Mo was about to start running, Yu Mo's slender hand reached out like a ghastly claw, grabbing Li Mo's big white tail. Meow meow wua. In order not to scare Mengzai, Yumo had been suppressing her use of the shadow power. Though without the enhancement of the shadow power, Yumo's physical abilities were still terrifying. Coupled with the unique buff she had against the wolf cub, a gentle tug from Yumo instantly made the cub lose her balance, and she fell face first into a piece of broken cake. The wolf cub wanted to escape, to struggle. But after her tail of fate was grabbed, she found herself weak and powerless, becoming a lamb ready for slaughter. All she could do was look back at Yumo with pitiful eyes. Mother, I was wrong. Unfortunately, Yumo, whose inner volcano was on the verge of erupting, didn't care about Li Mo's distress. Today, Yumo had made up her mind to be a strict mother. Since you've finally come back, let's have a good talk with Mommy, little Mo Tilda. Yumo said gently. Though her tone was gentle, her eyes were terrifying enough to make even the king of hell cry. Looking at her mother's terrifying face and the horrifying aura, Limo couldn't help but shiver all over. The next moment, accompanied by the wolf cub's miserable screams, Yumo dragged Limo by the tail, slowly walking towards the depths of the wooden house. After sensing that Limo, the little rascal, had regained her strength, Yumo was quite delighted. She planned to temporarily let go of the things the girl had done earlier, have a nice meal as a family, and enjoy some heartwarming time together. However, Limo, that little girl, actually broke in through the window. Couldn't she use the door? Not only did she not use the door, but she also smashed the dining table in one go and destroyed more than half of the furniture in the hall. Gazing at the chaotic scene, Yumo's face darkened, her eyebrows furrowed, and her crimson eyes filled with a benevolent expression. So Yumo, with a smile, dragged Limo by the tail towards the depths of the wooden house. Inside a sealed, dim room, the crimson shadow power suddenly rippled. A red light abruptly converged, solidified, and transformed into an oppressive summoning array. As the array operated, a surging power erupted from its center. A horrifying sense of oppression burst out in all directions. If it weren't for the protection of the crimson shadow power, the entire dark room would have been torn apart by the overflowing energy from the array. Accompanied by the release of energy, a legendary weapon slowly emerged from the array. This was the legendary artifact, crafted by Yu Mo with great difficulty using soul steel and Li Yu's feathers, the Feather Duster. An exclusive artifact to discipline disobedient children. Mother, I was wrong. Don't do it. The moment she saw the Feather Duster, Li Mo's eyes shrank dramatically. She instantly revealed a horrified expression and began to struggle frantically. Unfortunately, although Li Mo was a powerful demon king, she was no different from a child in front of Yu Mo. Li Mo's resistance proved futile. After struggling and thrashing her tail, Li Mo was forcibly placed on Yu Mo's snowy white lap. Mother, I promise I'll never do it again. Wahia. Knowing that escape was impossible, Li Mo lay on Yu Mo's lap and pitifully begged for mercy. Her crimson eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and combined with the attractive face of the wolf girl, it gave off a heart-melting sensation. However, although the girl was adorable to Yu Mo, she was no different from a mischievous husky. In fact, in the past, when faced with Li Mo's pitiful pleas, Yu Mo would mostly show mercy and let her off lightly. But this time, Yu Mo was determined to have a heart of stone and discipline the disobedient child thoroughly. If she didn't teach her a good lesson, Yu Mo had a feeling that this child would eventually demolish their home. Of course, discipline alone was not enough, but it was indispensable. With this in mind, Yu Mo forcibly suppressed her tender thoughts and put on a cold, terrifying face. Then, Yu Mo, shrouded in dark energy, lifted Li Mo's little skirt without a word and took off her snowy white panties. At this moment, Limo's tender buttocks were completely exposed under the pressure of the feather duster. Seeing this, Limo's cries for mercy became even more intense. Although she felt a bit of reluctance, Yumo steeled her heart. She raised her hand and pulled out the supreme divine artifact from the summoning array, powerful enough to make even 8th-level beings tremble in fear. Paya, accompanied by a burst of red light and the crisp sound of Papa Tilda, the feather duster showed no mercy as it landed on Limo's tender buttocks. Ah, woo woo woo. In an instant, the wailing of the wolf girl echoed through the dark room. Although the dark room had good soundproofing, her cries still reached the outside world. In midair, Li Yu, who was praying for Limo, couldn't help but shudder when she heard her sister's screams, showing an uneasy expression. Then the little girl reached behind her back and rubbed her own aching buttocks. "Good luck, sister," as Limo let out her pitiful wail. The people of the Snow Knight Empire were silent, engulfed by fear, sadness, and hatred, among many other negative emotions. At this moment, in the Snow Knight Empire's capital, in the heart of the Celestial Dome, at the city gate, under the watchful eyes of countless people and numerous nobles holding their breath, the gates slowly opened. A funeral procession consisting of thousands of people solemnly entered the capital city. Black funeral flags and royal banners fluttered at the front of the procession. It was evident that the funeral was not only for the soldiers who died in the battle against the abyssal demons, but also for a member of the royal family. Several days ago, a series of shocking news spread like a bomb throughout the Snow Knight Empire. For example, tens of thousands of abyssal demons launched simultaneous attacks, the emergence of Snow Devourer, the birth of the new demon King Blood Butterfly, and the deaths of the royal archmage and third Prince Bernard. This news caused panic and shock among the people. The abyssal demons hadn't launched a large-scale attack in hundreds of years. Was this attack a coincidence, or had the peace that lasted for centuries finally come to an end? The people couldn't help but feel uneasy as they contemplated these thoughts. The anxiety of the people in these days was once again stirred when they saw the funeral procession. I heard that the third prince died in the Neville Mountain Range. He died alongside Jace. The Neville Mountain Range, isn't that quite a distance from the northern border? How could they die there? Who knows? It seems the Blood Butterfly bypassed the northern border's army and directly attacked the Neville Mountain Range. How could this be? Will this monster attack the royal city in the future? Who knows? If even the royal family and archmage could be killed so easily, if the Blood Butterfly really comes, we ordinary people are doomed. As the anxiety spread rapidly, whispers began to circulate among the crowd. Seeing this, not far away on the platform, the vice-captain of the Royal Knights responsible for maintaining order at the scene, Cabalin, couldn't help but grip the hilt of his sword. These noisy people, don't they know that a royal funeral requires silence? However, just as Cabalin was about to unleash his fury and use his fighting spirit to warn the crowd, a slightly sad yet authoritative female voice resounded in his ears, stopping the vice-captain's actions. No need to interfere, let them speak. Without a body, this can hardly be considered a royal funeral. Yes, princess. Upon hearing this, Cabalin immediately retracted his fighting spirit and anger, respectfully looking toward the woman seated behind him. She was the host of the funeral, the princess of the Snow Knight Empire, Fingerling Valentine. As the fourth princess of the Snow Knight Empire and the Emperor's cherished treasure, the most beautiful angel of the empire, Fingerling's appearance was, of course, stunning. Her beautiful golden hair, like silk, fluttered in the wind, with slender willow eyebrows and a pair of ocean blue eyes as bright as the stars and the moon. Her delicate, tall nose was complemented by slightly blushing cheeks and cherry-red lips. She was incredibly lovable. At this moment, the beautiful princess was not dressed in her usual luxurious golden attire, but in black mourning clothes. She wore a dignified floor-length black skirt. Black silk garments covered her body from her waist and cuffs to her chest, leaving no skin exposed. Only at her chest were her exquisite curves slightly revealed, her fair bosom resembling sculptures made of black ice. The attire perfectly displayed Feng Ling's exquisite figure, particularly her slender waist. The beauty of this young girl could be compared to a goddess in heaven. Unfortunately, at this moment, the princess's once bright ocean blue eyes no longer conveyed her noble elegance, understanding nature and compassionate traits. Instead, they revealed a deep sadness that surpassed what could be expressed through tears, a heartbreaking desolation. There was no doubt that she was in a state of extreme sadness. After stopping Cabalin's actions, the beautiful princess gazed sorrowfully at the massive coffin in the distance. At the same time, her water-blue eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a serious gaze. Although she knew that her half-brother Bernard was not reliable, she did not believe that he would die so easily under the attack of the blood butterfly. Recalling the bloodstains in the imperial garden, Feng Ling couldn't help but show a hint of hatred in her eyes, and a bold speculation formed in her mind. Zhu Tiano, inside the Snow Sky Palace. After making arrangements for Bernard's funeral and handing over the follow-up work to the ministers, Feng Ling Valentine, the fourth princess of the Snow Knight Empire, hurried back to the palace. Then, without even bothering to change her clothes, she rushed to the crown prince's residence. She had something she wanted to confront her elder brother about. Upon seeing Feng Ling storming in, the guards and maids of the crown prince's residence seemed to have grown accustomed to it, offering no resistance and simply allowing her to head toward the crown prince's chamber. Without anyone blocking her path, Feng Ling quickly arrived at her destination. Looking at the closed door before her, after taking a few deep breaths to calm her emotions, Feng Ling forcefully pushed the door open. Upon seeing the dimly lit room inside, Feng Ling pressed her lips together, and her ocean blue eyes filled with strong disgust. Within the lavishly decorated room, there was an eerie pink atmosphere, accompanied by a pungent smell. The floor, walls, and sofas were covered in various broken pieces of women's clothing, torn apart as if by a wild animal. Various books, documents, and scrolls were scattered all over the floor, making it look like the aftermath of a great battle. More importantly, from behind the bed curtains not far away, strange sounds of men and women playing joyfully could be heard. Without a doubt, this scene made Feng Ling feel extremely uncomfortable, and she couldn't help but cover her mouth and nose. This guy, doing this in broad daylight. Feng Ling frowned. At that moment, a tall, sexy purple-haired woman seemed to have noticed Feng Ling's arrival, and after opening the bed curtains, she slowly stepped out from behind them. This was a beautiful woman with exotic charm. With dazzling purple hair cascading over her shoulders, enchanting pink eyes, and sensual fiery red lips. She was wearing a luxurious gown. The black dress boldly exposed her shoulders and back, the plunging neckline revealing more than half of her ample chest. Not only that, but the dress also revealed her full thighs and perfectly proportioned long legs. The fabric of the dress clung tightly to her waist and hips, accentuating her curvaceous figure. There was no doubt that the design was meant to be provocative. Upon wearing this purple-haired woman, it not only showcased her uniquely feminine allure, but also exuded a sense of noble elegance and mature charm. Now, the dress seemed to have been ravaged by a wild beast, leaving it torn and tattered. However, this slightly damaged clothing only made the purple-haired woman even more seductive, and her allure intensified. In this world, There were probably very few men who could resist the temptation of this purple-haired woman. "Oh, princess, you're here." Upon seeing Feng Ling's face, the woman showed no shame, but calmly picked up a wine glass and leisurely walked to Feng Ling's side, curiously asking, "Princess, aren't you busy with the imperial funeral? How do you have time to come here?" "I apologize, but it's almost noon, and the imperial funeral is already over," Feng Ling replied indifferently. Hearing this, the purple-haired woman raised her eyebrows slightly, revealing a charming and seductive smile. She extended her slender finger, teasingly lifting Feng Ling's chin. "In that case, princess, why don't you join in the fun?" As she spoke, the purple-haired woman slowly turned her head, casting a meaningful glance at the trembling bed behind her. "Lord Tiano is full of energy, you know. He probably can't be satisfied. Why not, princess? You should join in too, it will be. Get lost." However, before the purple-haired woman could finish speaking, Feng Ling angrily pushed her away and scolded her. "Watch your words, Marshal Talui. That guy is my brother." I know that, but what does it matter? Princess Feng Ling, you must know how Prince Tiano feels about you, don't you?" Hearing these words, Feng Ling clenched her teeth, with anger and humiliation bursting forth from her eyes. She raised her hand, intending to slap Talui's face, her mighty magic power instantly imbued in her palm. Nonsense! However, just as Feng Ling's slap was about to make contact with Talui's face, a deep, magnetic, and oppressively powerful voice suddenly came from within the bed curtains. "Feng Ling, stop!" At that moment, Feng Ling's movement came to an abrupt halt, her hand stopping right in front of Talui's face. It was not that she wanted to stop, but her body was suppressed by an overwhelming force. "Brother!" With indignation, Feng Ling looked angrily at the bed curtains behind Talui. At this moment, the seductive moans that had been surrounding the room suddenly disappeared, replaced by the faint sound of the girl's panting. In the next moment, under Feng Ling's complicated gaze, the curtain was slowly drawn back, revealing a tall, muscular, handsome blonde man standing before the two women. And this shirtless man was none other than the crown prince of the Snow Knight Empire, Zhu Tiano Valentine. At this moment, on the large bed behind Zhu Tiano, a beautiful, petite black-haired girl who wore not a single shred of clothing was panting as she lay on the bed, her entire body covered in red marks from her ravaging. As she met Feng Ling's ocean-blue eyes, the girl immediately hid herself in shame under the covers. Upon seeing the adorable face, Feng Ling was stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief. Isn't she the young miss from the Duke of Firo's household, Lilia? But that girl just a week ago, she really despised my imperial brother, didn't she? How could she now even go that far with him? Could it be because of... Thinking back to Lilia's blushing face just now, Feng Ling's face was filled with shock, and she couldn't help but look at her elder brother with a strange gaze. Under Feng Ling's peculiar stare, Zhu Tiano still casually hugged Talui. Glancing at Talui's flushed face and trembling body, Feng Ling couldn't help but show a contemptuous expression. All it took was one kiss. Are you kidding me? Damn, what a loose girl. Disgust filled Feng Ling's eyes. Talui seemed to sense Feng Ling's gaze and apparently guessed her thoughts, playfully teasing the princess of the Snow Knight Empire. Why don't you try it for yourself, princess, and see if you'll get carried away? You damned succubus. Enough, stop arguing. Fortunately, just as the two women were about to argue again, Zhu Tiano timely spoke to stop them. After putting on his pants, Zhu Tiano slowly walked to Feng Ling's side. What's the matter? Why did you suddenly come looking for me? I have something to talk. Feng Ling lowered her head, somewhat afraid to look into Zhu Tianhao's eyes, fearing that her inner thoughts would be exposed by his mysterious gaze. That feeling of being seen through, as if she were completely bare, truly disgusted her. Taking a deep breath to stabilize her emotions, Feng Ling slowly began to explain the reason for her visit. I want to ask you about what happened earlier in the Neville Mountains. Oh. Zhu Tianhao raised his eyebrows slightly, affectionately patting Feng Ling's shoulder. What's the matter? Are you worried about the blood butterfly attacking the imperial city like those old nobles? Ha ha ha, don't worry, your brother will protect you. Even if the Demon King monster comes, I'll destroy them. In response to Zhu Tianhao's reassurance, Feng Ling simply shook her head. No, I know you can handle the Demon King abyssal creature, so I'm not worried about that. What I want to ask is whether my third brother's death has anything to do with you. The moment Feng Ling asked her question, the smile on Zhu Tianhao's face gradually faded. I want to ask about Bernard. As Feng Ling uttered those words, Zhu Tianhao's expression changed slightly. After pondering and looking towards a nearby window, he hooked his arm around Feng Ling's shoulder again. My dear sister, this isn't the place to talk. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint golden light suddenly spread around Zhu Tianhao's body. In the next instant, Zhu Tianhao and Feng Ling disappeared abruptly after a wave of magical fluctuations. What just happened? The sudden change caught Feng Ling off guard, and she couldn't help but let out a gasp. When she regained her senses, she found herself on the top of the Falling Leaves Palace with Zhu Tianhao. After taking a look at the vast and magnificent cityscape, Feng Ling turned her head towards her brother, though she didn't dare look him in the eye, focusing on his sharp eyebrows instead. What's the reason for suddenly bringing me here? Haha, nothing really, just enjoying the scenery. We haven't had a good chat for a long time. Why don't we talk today? Sorry, Imperial brother, I don't have anything to talk about with you. What a shame, Zhu Tianhao feigned regret and sighed. Then the handsome and unrestrained man sat down on the rooftop, crossing his legs, and leisurely gazed at the imperial city. Bernard, my royal brother. Sigh, it's a pity he was killed by the blood butterfly. Don't worry, sister, I will avenge him in the future. Hearing Zhu Tianhao's words, Feng Ling couldn't help but snort coldly. Imperial brother, stop pretending. Bernard might have been a bit foolish, but he was very good at escaping. Under those circumstances, he would have used a spatial teleportation to return to the palace. Also, I found bloodstains in the imperial garden, and they belonged to Bernard. Oh, are you saying there's an assassin in our palace? Someone who killed my beloved brother? Heh, isn't that assassin you? My dear imperial brother, who else would attack Bernard? As Feng Ling spoke, the fourth princess stared silently at Zhu Tianhao for several seconds. He tilde ha ha ha. As expected of my sister, you're so smart, it's no wonder I've always had high hopes for you. After a moment of silence, Zhu Tianhao laughed unrestrainedly. Since he had casually set up a soundproofing spell around them, he wasn't worried about their conversation being overheard. Besides, even if someone heard, those near Falling Leaves Palace were his trusted confidants. After his wild laughter, Zhu Tianhao playfully looked at Feng Ling. Yes, indeed, I killed him. Why did you kill him? He was your brother. But he never treated me as a brother, did he? Have you forgotten how he bullied me when we were young? That was when you were young and didn't know any better. Right, I don't care if they're ignorant or not, and even if it was because of their ignorance at that time. But what about now? He never respected me, right? He even colluded with father to trip me up for the crown prince's position. And I didn't just kill him for no reason, I warned him twice already. You know, Feng Ling, I never give anyone a third chance. Feeling the chill in Zhu Tian's gaze, Feng Ling couldn't help but slightly control her emotions. What has he done again? He's done quite a lot while I was away on a foreign visit. He helped Father weaken my influence in the Sky Dome, meddled with my mines, sent people to poison me, and even made the decision to attack the Saintess using a magic energy fission bomb. Bernard, he actually targeted the Saintess. Hearing this, Feng Ling couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. After all, since meeting the Chosen One, Bernard had been completely enamored with the beautiful and holy girl, as if he were in love. How could he suddenly attack her? Noticing Feng Ling's confusion, Zhu Tianao laughed heartily. Haha, don't get too caught up, my sister. He's just holding onto the foolish idea of if I can't have it, destroy it. So you killed him. If he doesn't die, what do we have to explain to the Asumo's church? Besides, there's only one way to die for someone who targets my woman. Hearing this, although Feng Ling was extremely displeased, she didn't dare to berate Zhu Tianao. If this man really dared to attack the third prince, it meant he already had the confidence to challenge the emperor. However, the girl couldn't help but frown. Your woman. Zhu Tian, as far as I remember, you've only met the Chosen One twice, right? How did she become yours? And your harem already includes 5, including Lilia. Are you still not satisfied? Don't use that tone. Regarding Feng Ling's question, Zhu Tianao dismissively waved his hand. I'm a man who will save the world. What's wrong with having a few more wives? As for the Chosen One, she's destined to be with me. Destined? Where does your confidence come from? What makes you think she'd really want to be with you? Why not? She's the Chosen One, the most revered woman in the prophecy. How could she be willing to share a man with other women? I've already considered that. Considered it? Yes, that's why I've reserved the position of my main wife for her. Even if she's unwilling, it doesn't matter. No one can resist my eyes of destiny. These eyes can see through others' emotions by looking at them, and can also invisibly increase others' goodwill towards me. As long as I want to, there's no one I can't win over. As he spoke, Zhu Tianao revealed a confident smile. With a quick movement, he suddenly appeared beside Feng Ling, and without saying anything, he embraced her in his arms, slowly speaking with a magnetic voice. Besides, not just the Chosen One. My dear Feng Ling, you'll eventually belong to me too. You don't daydream. Father won't allow such nonsense. That old man can't stop me, but don't worry, I won't force you. You can take your time to think about it. Looking at the man before her, familiar yet strange, and even frightening, Feng Ling couldn't help but clench her fists. Indeed, she couldn't entrust Mengzai to someone like him. At the same time, deep in the eastern part of the cold winter forest, in a small wooden house, in Yumo's room, Mengzai, who was sleeping on the bed, suddenly shuddered and furrowed her brow, as if she had a nightmare or felt an inexplicable chill. Her delicate body trembled. Seeing this, Yumo, who had been accompanying her for a long time, showed a hint of worry. Is this a nightmare? Thinking so, Yumo gently patted the silver-haired girl's back and softly spoke in a comforting tone. Don't be afraid, Tilda. Don't be afraid, Tilda. Big sister is here with. No one can hurt. If anyone wants to harm you, I'll slaughter them, okay, Tilda? Don't be afraid, Tilda. With Yumo's comforting words, Mengzai gradually calmed down. After letting out a cute she continued to hug her teddy bear tightly. Sigh, Tilda. Seeing this, Yumo let out a sigh of relief. For a moment, she thought the medicine had some side effects. It seems that it was just a simple nightmare. But why did she suddenly have a nightmare? Never mind. Let's check again. With that thought, Yumo slowly closed her eyes. A gentle wave of shadow power spread out, enveloping Mengzai's body, carefully sensing her condition. Tilda. It seems that the effect is quite good, Tilda. After sensing for a brief moment, Yumo revealed a satisfied, sweet smile. With another treatment tonight, after the female leads full recovery, she should be able to reach the early stage of the 6th rank. He tilde. In this way, she will be one step closer to the 8th rank. Fine, that's enough for now. Nodding silently and patting Mengzai's head, Yumo slowly left the bedroom and carefully closed the door. Now, the black-haired girl muttered to herself, thoughtfully looking towards the mountain peak in the distance. That was where the Bai Yanluo was being held. That heavenly apostle. And it's time to consider how to deal with her. Speaking of which, how are female knights like her, who fall into the enemy's hands, usually handled? Inside Yumo's bedroom. Sister Yumo. As the bright sunlight shone in, Mengzai, who seemed to have completely absorbed the effects of the medicine, gradually woke up from her sleep. The silver-haired girl sat up sleepily, rubbing her drowsy little eyes. Afterward, Mengzai curiously looked around, trying to find that familiar black silhouette. However, this time Mengzai was disappointed. After a while of searching, Mengzai found nothing. The black-haired girl who had been taking care of her recently wasn't sitting by the bedside or sitting motionlessly on a chair like before, but was completely gone. The whole house seemed to have fallen into a state of complete silence. Sister isn't here. Mengzai's purple eyes narrowed slightly. After thinking for a moment, the girl slowly got out of bed and put on the black fur coat that Yumo had prepared for her earlier. Once she was prepared for the cold, Mengzai got up, left the room, and walked straight out of the door. Outside, the cold wind was biting, and the brutal blizzard obscured the view, making everything blurry. However, Mengzai's expression remained unchanged. Facing the bone-chilling cold wind outside, the silver-haired girl thoughtfully looked towards the distant mountain peak. The girl put on her hood and wordlessly walked toward the forest. Meanwhile, "Ow, mother is so mean, mother is a villain. My butt hurts so much, ow tilde." Not far from the house, on a certain cave above Li Mo, the cute little husky in human form was sadly wailing with her ears down. At this moment, inside the cave where several 7th-rank demonic wolves were standing, the wolf girl was lying on the ground, pitifully sticking up her red butt. Due to the burning pain coming from her butt, Li Mo didn't dare to sit down at all, so she had to lie or stand, even afraid to put on her pants. The pain from the wounds was always unbearable. Under normal circumstances, such minor injuries would be nothing for the Demon King Li Mo. The pain was easily bearable for her. More importantly, with such small-scale injuries, Li Mo, who had excellent recovery abilities, could heal completely in the blink of an eye. However, after being whipped by Yumo's feather duster, things were completely different. The feather duster was a divine tool specifically made by Yumo to discipline her naughty children. It's not only indestructible but also has damage amplification, causing the pain to multiply. Even a Demon King being would feel lingering pain after being hit. Additionally, the feather duster carried a curse effect, making wounds inflicted by it difficult to heal quickly. That's why Li Mo was still lying on the ground, crying out in pain. "Woohoo, it hurts so much, Li Yu, woohoo tilde." With her little eyes turning slightly red, Li Mo sobbed and looked back at her younger sister Li Yu, who had a delicate gray-haired appearance. Faced with her sister's groaning, Li Yu couldn't help but sigh helplessly. "Sigh, sister, you really deserved it this time." "Woo-woo-woo, why would you say that, woo-woo-woo tilde?" "Sigh, stop squirming, let me put some ointment on you." Looking at the battered and tender little bot in front of her, Li Yu couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart, as she recalled the tragic scene of being disciplined when she was a child. However, even the feather duster had been brought out this time. It seemed that their mother was really determined to teach her sister A good lesson this time. Um, it's probably a good thing. Her sister could really be reckless sometimes. With that in mind, Li Yu quickly smeared some pain-relieving ointment onto her hand, and then suddenly slapped it onto Li Mo's bot, causing her body to convulse and let out a wail. "Ow, Li Yu, what are you doing? Be gentle." Sorry, Tilda." Li Yu pouted her little mouth, giggling. But with the laughter aside, Li Yu's little hands carefully helped her sister apply the medicine, trying not to hurt the wounds too much. In any case, hearing her sister's scream, Li Yu still felt quite distressed. At the same time, Li Yu also felt a tinge of guilt. After all, she seemed to have escaped quite fast last night. However, it was something that couldn't be helped after all. That was the feather duster that made all the demon king-level existences cower in fear. As Li Yu was silently applying medicine for Li Mo, a faint sound suddenly caught her ear. In an instant, the gentle expression on Li Yu's face disappeared, replaced by a cold, murderous intent. Waking up so soon. At this moment, reflected in Li Yu's emerald green eyes, the white-haired girl who was tightly chained to the wall, who was also the heavenly apostle of the Asumo's church by Yanluo, let out a faint moan. Her fingers began to tremble slightly, and the surrounding energy started to gather towards her body. It was clear that this was a sign of the girl waking up. As for this, Li Yu was already used to it. After all, Bai Yanluo was a genuine sword god-level expert, possessing an extraordinary constitution. It was effortless for her to recover from her previous concussion. However, Li Yu naturally wouldn't allow such a threat to wake up just like that. Li Yu's emerald eyes narrowed slightly. Without a word, she picked up the giant hammer that was prepared beside her and swung it toward Bai Yanluo's head with boom tilde tilde, accompanied by a big resounding noise and the shivering tremors of the nearby abyssal demons. Bai Yanluo, under the weight of the hammer, suddenly passed out again. As for Li Yu nonchalantly tossed the hammer aside and continued to apply medicine on her sister's bot. Judging by her practiced movements and the large bump on Bai Yanluo's head, it seemed that Li Yu had been doing this for the past few days. Ow! Catching a glimpse of the unconscious Bai Yanluo behind her, Li Mo frowned slightly and looked curiously at her sister, who was applying medicine for her. Li Yu, isn't that the woman I fought with before? Yes, she's the heavenly apostle of the Asumo's church. An apostle, why not kill her? Killing her, mother's watching, don't mess around. Woo, all right. Li Mo pouted unhappily. Looking at Bai Yanluo's snow-white, long legs wrapped in stockings, and recalling the experience of being kicked, Li Mo's crimson eyes showed a hint of fierceness, as if she had an impulse to bite Bai Yanluo's thigh. Since she couldn't kill her, she could at least bite her a few times, right? Noticing her sister's thoughts, Li Yu helplessly slapped her sister's bot hard tilde. Paya. Ow. In an instant, the intense pain made Li Mo retract the murderous intent in her eyes, looking innocently at Li Yu. What was that for? Nothing, just reminding you that mother said not to mess with her. Sister, do you really want to taste the feather duster again? Li Yu asked in a ghostly manner. Upon hearing the words feather duster, Li Mo shuddered again and quickly shook her head. Her thoughts were immediately expelled from her mind tilde. Woo fine. The little wolf girl climbed down somewhat listlessly. And just at this moment, seemingly sensing something, the wolf girl's fluffy ears suddenly perked up. Li Yu also slightly raised her eyebrows. Several huge, seventh-tier abyssal demons beside the sisters instinctively crouched to the ground at this moment. The next instant, under the delighted gazes of the two sisters, a stunning black-haired girl appeared at the entrance, surrounded by a burst of red light and a cluster of blood-colored butterflies. "Mother, mother, mother, what brings you here?" Seeing Yumo's arrival, Li Yu curiously asked, pausing the task of applying medicine for her sister. Li Mo didn't mind, because upon seeing Yumo's arrival, Li Mo's face instantly turned red, and she hastily jumped up from the ground. Although she might be a bit clumsy usually, Li Mo knew that her current posture was somewhat inelegant. Thus, the wolf girl hurriedly stood up and pulled down her skirt to cover her bruised bottom. Mother. Still remembering the lesson from last night, Li Mo's words were tinged with a hint of fear. Looking at the apprehensive, exposed little white wolf in front of her, Yumo couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps she had been too harsh last night. Thinking of this, Yumo's expression softened, and she gently stroked Li Mo's head and her fluffy, adorable ears. "Does it still hurt?" "It hurts." The little wolf girl sullenly lowered her ears. Actually, the little wolf girl was quite tall, even taller than Yumo. Stroking the head of a daughter taller than herself, Yumo felt a strange sensation. Sigh. After a long sigh, a red light slowly seeped from Yumo's body and flowed toward the space ring on her index finger. "Fine, I won't hit you with the 30 remaining hits." Saying so, an exquisite glass bottle emerged from the space ring. Undoubtedly, it was the healing elixir of the elves, Tears of Nature. Yumo then handed the slow healing elixir bottle to Li Yu. "Afterwards, apply it to your sister." Li Yu obediently accepted the potion and nodded. "Understood, mother." Meow. Upon hearing Yumo's words, Li Mo's cowering wolf ears suddenly perked up and looked at Yumo, both joyful and excited. "Really, no need to make up for the missed hits." "No need. In any case, it was just to scare you." Yumo laughed silently to herself. After receiving her mother's affirmation, Li Mo's pain in her bot seemed to disappear instantly. The previously listless little wolf girl instantly revived with full energy, excitedly dancing and jumping around. "Oi, no more getting hit." This scene directly caused Li Yu, who was behind her, to shake her head speechless. "Sister, you're exposing yourself." "Well, at least no one else is here." Of course, the happy Li Mo wouldn't notice such minor details. However, it seemed that Li Mo's happiness had a short shelf life. Because in the next instant, Yu Mo's leisurely words entered Li Mo's ears, causing her body to shudder abruptly. "Well, you might not get hit on the bot, but your moral education still needs to continue, okay, Tilda?" Meow. Upon hearing these words, Li Mo's face suddenly changed dramatically. The joy that had just appeared on her face vanished instantly, and her little bottom began to ache faintly once again. Then, the wolf girl's face took on a mournful look, staring at Yumo with pitiful, abandoned puppy eyes. "Mother, please don't." "No." Yumo firmly expressed her denial. Hearing her mother's unequivocal words, Li Mo knew that acting cute was useless. She hung her head and stared gloomily at the floor. Seeing this, her younger sister Li Yu couldn't help but sigh. "Silly sister. If you had continued to act pitiful, maybe mother would have softened her heart and spared you from the lecture, Tilda." Alas, she's still too inexperienced. Li Yu secretly complained in her heart. After casting a sympathetic glance at her silly older sister, Li Yu looked towards the black-haired girl who was interacting with the 3 7th-level demonic creatures. "Mother, what brings you here all of a sudden?" "Well, you see." Yumo, who was petting the demon ghost bone dragon's head, smiled slightly and playfully tilted her head. "A certain little one woke up, so I came to check on her. Isn't that quite normal?" As she spoke, Yumo turned and looked at the top of the cave. "You agree, don't you, little Shuo, you Tilda?" As Yumo's words fell, the previously empty ceiling suddenly experienced a bizarre distortion. Under the envelopment of a blue-golden shadow power, ripples of water began to emanate from the stone walls. In the next instant, under Yumo's, just as I thought gaze, a beautiful, adorable blue-haired girl wearing a light blue dress appeared on the ceiling. Mummy! The blue-haired girl, also known as Xiu Yue, suddenly brushed off her previous drowsiness. Amid countless droplets of dew, she leaped down from above, excitedly clinging to Yumo's neck and affectionately rubbing her little face against Yumo's chest. Hee, it's so comfortable to rub against Mummy's human form. Oh, as long as you like it. Yumo smiled and patted the adorable little head of the girl. No matter what form Mummy takes, Xiu Yue loves it. But it's a pity I was discovered by Mummy. I originally wanted to sneak up from behind, embrace Mummy, and give her a surprise tilde. There seemed to be a hint of regret in Xiu Yue's voice. Regarding this, Yumo shook her head with a tearful smile. You little girl, you wanted to sneak up on me. You're really underestimating me, tilde. Yumo said jokingly, and raised her hand to flick Xiu Yue's upturned nose. By the way, what made you wake up so suddenly? Looking into Xiu Yue's light golden eyes and the beautiful golden rose beside her right eye, Yumo asked curiously. Unlike Li Mo and Li Yu, Xiu Yue's origin is somewhat unique. She isn't a magical or spiritual beast, but a spiritual life form. The true form of Maple Leaf Xiu Yue is a rare spiritual life form called Dream Demon, which resides within the hearts of others. It is said to be a descendant of the god of dreams. After being born from the golden rose, these dream demons attach themselves to other creatures, drawing sustenance from their host's dreams to accumulate the power needed to manifest a physical form. However, during this process, they don't harm their hosts. Instead, they gradually increase the host's soul power. Because of this, dream demons have become highly sought after in the Ansita continent. Countless individuals seeking to cultivate their soul power have begun attempting to capture dream demons. The golden roses that give birth to dream demons were consequently destroyed on a massive scale. It is said that golden roses no longer exist on the Ansita continent since 60 years ago. Before becoming a demon king being, Xiu Yue, like most young dream demons, had no physical form. She was trapped inside a hero's body by the Asumo's church, helping him cultivate soul power. After that hero was killed by Li Mo, the dying Xiu Yue appeared before Yumo. Driven by curiosity, Yumo gave a small part of her origin power to the dying dream demon. This led to the creation of the demon king-level demonic creature, Nightmare. However, because Xiu Yue often went to human society to play in the past, she acquired some seemingly Chunabiu titles such as Dream Dominator and Dream God in human society. Regardless, she could be considered quite an obedient, good child. Additionally, since she retained the dream demon's propensity for sleep, Xiu Yue had been mostly asleep since her birth. She wouldn't usually wake up unless she had slept for several decades. But this time, she seemed to have only slept for 6 or 7 years, right? Originally, Yumo thought she would sleep for another 10 or so years. Why did she wake up so early? Thinking of this, Yumo showed a hint of puzzlement. In response, Xiu Yue smiled and gently floated up, continuing to affectionately rub her face against Yumo's cheek. I woke up early to see Mummy, of course. You turned into a human form and didn't even tell me. Xiu Yue is so unhappy, tilde. Sorry, I didn't want to disturb your rest. Don't be unhappy. All right, then I accept Mummy's apology. Xiu Yue happily nodded her head. At this, Yumo's crimson eyes also showed a quite satisfied emotion. Since you're awake, Xiu Yue, you can help me deal with a rather troublesome issue. Actually, if you didn't wake up soon, I was planning to go find you directly." Ahem. Hearing this, Xiu Yue tilted her head and looked curiously at her mother. "What does Mummy need help with? Can Xiu Yue be of assistance?" "Yes, indeed, Tilda." Yumo smiled softly. Then the black-haired girl looked thoughtfully towards the white-haired woman, locked on the stone wall not far away. "Help me do something inside her min now." There was a problem that made Yumo quite conflicted, which was how to deal with this apostle of heaven, Bai Yanluo. As for Mengzai, because her soul power was depleted, she had temporarily entered a childlike state. It seemed that once her soul power was restored, she would return to her original form, and after that, she would completely forget the events that had happened during this time. Well, probably. So Mengzai's situation wasn't a big issue. However, the trouble was with this young lady, who was a holy knight of the Asumo's church. Unlike Mengzai, this Bai Yanluo did not have any problems with depleted soul power. Although her strength was greatly consumed, she had merely been knocked unconscious by Li Yu. If she recovered, it was very likely she would remember the events that had occurred. Because of this, Yumo asked Li Yu to periodically cast the Great Memory Forgetfulness spell on this apostle of heaven, aiming it at her head every few days. Well, could it make her forget the previous scene she had witnessed? That remained unknown. If Lady would she remembered and spread the word once she returned, it would probably become widely known across the entire continent that Mengzai had been taken away by the blood butterfly. In that case, if Yumo later returned Mengzai to the Asumo's church and they saw the unharmed daughter of destiny, the people of the church might become suspicious, thinking Mengzai had some connection to the abyssal demons. That would indeed be troublesome, as unity in the human world was extremely important to fight against the abyssal demons. Therefore, Yumo believed she could not allow Bai Yanluo to relay the events she had seen back to the church. If it were an ordinary person, Yumo would most likely choose to silence them by killing them. But the problem was that this woman, a rare sword god existence, one of the top combat forces on the entire continent, killing or disabling her would be such a waste. Yumo still hoped that in the future, Bai Yanluo could become a reliable partner for the female protagonist. After all, she seemed to be quite loyal. At first, she dared to charge at me for Mengzai. Yumo couldn't help but think so in her heart. She then informed her daughters of her inner thoughts. Apart from Li Mo, who was distracted because she needed to catch up on her studies, Li Yu and Xiu Yue both revealed expressions of understanding. However, a trace of coldness flickered in the eyes of the two young girls, barely noticeable. "Mother, do you want me to try to overwrite that part of her memory with a false reality?" "Yes, can you?" "Mum, I'll give it a try." After taking a deep breath and comprehending Yumo's words, Xiu Yue slowly released the small hand that had been wrapped around Yumo's neck. Surrounded by a cluster of floating water droplets, the blue-haired girl slowly floated to the side of Bai, carefully examining this pinnacle of the Asumo's church's strength. The two seventh-tier abyssal demons guarding Bai Yanluo also retreated slowly, with great interest. A surge of blue-golden shadow power slowly seeped out of Xiu Yue's body, enveloping Bai Yanluo. The lovely girl's eyes, which were adorned with golden roses, blinked continuously. Afterward, Xiu Yue furrowed her brows and slowly turned her head to look at Yumo, revealing a remorseful expression. "I'm sorry, Mommy. This woman's soul power is not much weaker than mine, so under this situation, I can't directly overwrite her memory." "Is there no way to do it?" Hearing this answer, Yumo couldn't help but feel a little frustrated, as if Xiu Yue couldn't handle it. She might have to resort to some more extreme methods. However, fortunately, after a moment of silence, the blue-haired girl revealed a charming and confident smile. "Hee, but Mommy, I have another." What kind? Give me a kiss and I'll tell. Xiu Yue playfully grinned and floated back in front of Yu Mo, extending her slender finger and pointing at her fair and delicate face. She seemed to be determined not to reveal her method unless she got a kiss. Faced with this, Yu Mo could only helplessly smile, and then indulgently rubbed Xiu Yue's little head. This girl, although her body seemed quite mature, her inner self still seemed as fond of acting spoiled as before. Sigh. Perhaps this is the privilege of being the youngest sister. As for her youngest child at the moment, Yumo just smiled and nodded slightly. All right then. With that, Yumo lifted her hand to brush away the black hair on her face, slowly leaned down, and lightly kissed Xiu Yue's cheek like a dragonfly skimming the water's surface. There, are you satisfied now? Memo. Having received Yu Mo's reward, Xiu Yue immediately revealed a content and sweet smile, nodding her head excitedly. Then the blue-haired girl proudly looked at her two sisters behind Yu Mo. In the past, as the youngest daughter, Xiu Yue always enjoyed using her age advantage to act spoiled toward Yu Mo and tease her siblings. Little Xiu Yue found great pleasure in the envious gazes from her brothers and sisters. However, this time the situation seemed to be different. Li Yu watched everything before her with indifference, showing no emotional fluctuations. As for Li Mo, she still seemed to be extremely upset about having to catch up on her studies and didn't notice the interaction between Xiu Yue and their mother. At this moment, the wolf girl was just staring blankly in place. Whine. Boring. Xiu Yue slightly puckered her lips in disappointment. So can we proceed now? However, upon hearing Yu Mo's words, Xiu Yue hid her little thoughts and responded to her mother with a sweet smile. Mem, we can proceed now, Mommy. With that, Xiu Yue floated back to the female knight's side, playfully lifting the white-haired girl's cheek. Her memory of seeing Mommy has become fuzzy and unclear because Li Yu had repeatedly dealt her a heavy blow. Although it didn't result in perfect physical amnesia, her memory of witnessing you is already vague. Is that so? Yes, Mommy Tilda. So how do you plan to handle it? Hee, I just need to blur it with multi-layered dreams. Her memory of that moment is quite hazy. At this time, if I implant a realistic dream into her, she'll confuse dreams with reality till this will suppress the memory of seeing Mother deep within her mind. As long as Mommy doesn't meet her in her current form, this woman hardly will recall anything about Mommy. With this approach, she would only believe that she was blown away by the demonic energy fission bomb Tilda. By then, the church in the Snow Knight Empire. Let's see how you can mend your relationship, Tilda. The hero and the heroine. You two just fight amongst yourselves first, Tilda. Fight until one of you dies. Let's see what she can use to fight Mommy by then, Tilda. Tilda. Xiu Yue revealed an imperceptible sly grin. While on the other side, Yumo rested her chin on her hand, making a thoughtful expression. Ah, that seems good, Tilda. Wow. Although she didn't fully understand, it seemed very impressive. Yumo's smile carried a hint of embarrassment. Among these children, Xiu Yue liked to be close to her the most, but since the child was young and often slept, Yumo had very limited knowledge about Xiu Yue's abilities. However, seeing her so meticulous and full of confidence, it should be fine, right? In that case, Yumo approvingly nodded. All right, Xiu Yue, give it a try. Okay, I won't disappoint you, Mommy. Just watch my performance. After enthusiastically waving to Yumo, Xiu Yue's entire being suddenly disintegrated, transforming into a sky full of blue-gold light that slowly entered Bai Yanluo's body, entering Bai Yanluo's spiritual world. The white-haired girl with closed eyes suddenly showed a pained expression, mixed with a touch of loathing and anger. I hope everything goes smoothly. Watching this scene, Yumo silently prayed in her heart. Then, Yumo looked towards the gray-haired little girl behind her. Lei Yu, do you have any orders, mother? And after glancing at the still-stunned wolf girl behind Li Yu, Yumo couldn't help but sigh. Sigh later, take your silly sister back and remember to apply some medicine. All right, mother. Li Yu answered with her usual obedient and adorable voice. At this, Yumo nodded in satisfaction. Afterward, the black-haired girl continued to silently watch the white-haired knight, enveloped in blue-gold light. And at this moment, seeming to sense something, Yumo involuntarily shuddered. Her brow furrowed abruptly, and a solemn expression emerged within her crimson eyes. Mengzai. How did that girl come out? She woke up. So soon. And I. No. Didn't I say not to leave the house? With Li Yu's astonished gaze, Yu Mo's face changed dramatically, and she transformed into a crimson light, disappearing on the spot, surrounded by a group of blood-red butterflies. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.